Hi everybody, welcome to the session. My name is Miodownik. I am Professor of Materials and Society at UCL, and amongst other things, we carried out the big repair project and citizen science project a few years ago looking at repair. And we got several projects in the area trying to understand, unlock what the obstacles are to repair for citizens and for companies. And I'm going to introduce very briefly the panel, and then I'm going to ask them all just to give us a brief, a few minutes each on, what they do in their organisation that pertains to right to repair in the UK. Like, how does that affect their organisation, and what's the view of their organisation with respect to that, so that you can all get a sense of where everyone's coming from and who they are. And then we'll go to some panel questions, and we'll sort of bat them about a bit and go off in different directions, and then we'll come out to you, the audience, and get you involved. That's the plan. Okay, wish us luck. Okay, so yeah, on my right is Andrew Morlet. He used to run the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and that's where we met, and now is chair of the Circular Economy Taskforce, which is, you'll hear more about in a minute. And then we've got Fiona, co-director of Restart, who you all know, and has put this whole organisation together with Ugo, and is going to tell us about the Restart attitude to right to repair in the UK. And then we've got David Greenfield, who is what I call the Swiss Army knife of the waste industry. He does everything, and if you want one person who can help you with almost any question, David is your man. Then we've got Katy Medlock, who is General Manager of Back Market, and she'll tell us about how you've managed to do so well and how you've really kind of flown the flag for repaired and re-engineered manufactured products on the market. And then we've got Sarah Ottaway, who's Sustainability Lead for Suez, and we're going to hear from you about what Suez is doing in this space and attitude to right to repair in the UK. Fantastic. Now, I did say I was going to start with Andrew first, but then I realized that I sort of promised Fiona that she would get the first go, because you've really designed this panel, and I think you should be given that. So Fiona first, then Andrew.
Yeah, because I haven't spoken enough today already. Sorry, everyone who was in the last session. Restart, we started off kind of working with repair cafes, realised very quickly there's only so much you can do to catch the mountain of e-waste that is flying at us. And so campaigning became a really important part of what we do. And so I would say we campaign for right to repair in its broadest sense. Right to repair legislation is one of our asks, but what we want is, we all want to be able to repair. We want it to be easier, to be cheaper, to be more accessible, and to be more kind of appealing and like part of our culture. So we've made the most of the fact that we pretty much talk to everyone in the repair area. And we have kind of pulled together the repair and reuse declaration. So and that's our kind of main tool for kind of pulling together all the voices and showing policymakers that we all care about repair and that there is something they can do about it.
Thank you very much. So I'm now going to come back to Andrew and tell you a little bit about.
As Mark said, I used to lead the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. I was there for 12 years and CEO for 10 of those. And really that organisation was a single issue organisation just looking at promoting and developing the idea of a circular economy, which back in 2010, when the foundation was set up, really wasn't a thing. And I'm absolutely delighted that it massively is now, to the extent that, there is 80 odd countries around the world that are developing policies specifically on the topic, tens of thousands of articles, tens of thousands of hours of media on, various channels. It's properly a thing, and which is great. And I think that the sophistication of the discussion has moved a lot over the years from really waste and recycling to much more systems thinking and systems approaches. And I think from my perspective, the right to repair piece sits in a system, a broken system. It's not just the repair itself, but it's the business models, it's the design, it's the materials, it's all sorts of things that come into play. So I'm now working, as Mark said, as chair of the Circular Economy Taskforce, which was set up by DEFRA with a number of other ministries, the Department of Trade and Technology, Department of Net Zero, Treasury. So it is a cross-departmental effort. And what we're doing is supporting DEFRA in developing a strategy. The Minister for DEFRA, Steve Creed, has put out a vision for the circular economy, which I think is actually very good. It's quite ambitious, it is visionary, it's long-term, it recognises the system's challenges, it's framed as an economic construct rather than a waste construct. It's looking at how the circular economy can contribute to growth as an important part of the government's agenda, but also address a whole raft of other challenges and deliver a whole raft of other benefits. So it's quite a broad scope, and it's the start of, I think, a journey in the UK to really take on the topic and to embed it much more fundamentally. We have 6 sectors that we're particularly focusing on as an initial set, and then there's a number of cross-cutting themes, which are things like education and finance and the like. So they're things that cut across. We're looking at construction, built environment, transport, automotive, agri-finance, agri-food, textiles, did I say, plastics, chemistry and plastics, and one other. What have I missed? I've got all tangled up. Triple E. So those, as you can imagine, it's a big scope. So I'm really delighted David's here as well, because David sits on the Triple E part of that and the built environment part, so we can double hat this a bit. My job is to know a little bit about a lot of things, and David's a bit deeper and obviously is a Swiss Army knife. So I'm really delighted to be here too, by the way. I think this is a fantastic movement.
Thank you very much. I'm going to hand over to the Swiss Army knife, David.
Cool. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, all. This is a lovely venue, isn't it? I'm going to go today, Matthew. I'm here as the founder and managing director of Tech Take Back. We introduced the world's first on-demand collection system for householders to get their end-of-life tech, data erased, refurbished, and given back out to the community. We've currently collected over 150,000 items and got over 2,500 people out of digital inclusion, equating to around £19 million worth of social value. So that's one of my day jobs. I've got 2 other day jobs, which I won't bore you with today, and I am on the task force. But from a right to repair perspective, we run a professional organisation that takes end-of-life tech, assesses it, triages it for whether it can be repaired, whether it can be refurbished, and in a lot of cases things can be, but we won't repair them. And there are multiple barriers. We were just up in the data discussion beforehand, and many of those barriers relate to cost of repair, parts availability. Actually, one of the biggest things at the moment is essentially, are they too old? Particularly on the tech side of things, we're starting to see a huge amount of redundancy in older life tech, and in particular, we've got a big cliff coming towards us with Windows 10, where we anticipate a huge amount of tech that is probably very viable for reuse, but from a software point of view, won't be safe to use. So as somebody that supports people that are digitally excluded, we do not give tech to people that cannot be supported by the OEMs, because you're then taking a vulnerable person and giving them a device that might make them more vulnerable. So everything that we'll be giving out from October will be Windows 11. So we cannot reuse Windows 10's devices for digital inclusion because it is harmful to those individuals. So right to repair is about the physical right, but also about how do we extend the life of devices beyond repair, and looking at warranties and looking at software in particular when it comes to some of those tech devices.
Thank you very much. And now I'll ask Katy to introduce the back market approach and thoughts on right to repair.
Thank you. So I'm Katy, General Manager for the UK for Back Market. Who is Back Market? We are the world's largest marketplace for refurbished devices. What do I represent on this panel of lovely people? Two things, I guess, is the fact that this is a commercially viable industry. Back Market is at scale. We've got 10 million customers worldwide. We connect 2,000 sellers to those 10 million customers. We've raised hundreds of millions to grow and scale this. So we're proof that there is a future for refurbished devices. The other thing that I'm here representing, I guess, is the consumer. So of all of our industries, of all of our places within the industry, I guess what Back Market is really doing is taking something that many of you in this room have been connected to for a very long time, and we've turned around and made it cool for 18 to 35-year-olds. We've been in graffiti street art. We have been at music festivals. We are working with influencers and trying to really engage that younger audience to make sure that they understand that they don't need to spend everything they've ever earned on buying a brand new phone. They have actually got viable options. Where do we stand on right to repair? We try and get that audience engaged with it. We do a lot of work, particularly with Fiona and Restart, and trying to get MPs and politicians to be connected to the movement as well. But we need it. You know, we are proof that this can be commercially viable, but the margins in this business are very, very tight, and so we really do need to make sure for all of our network of refurbishers that they are able to access parts. They're not blocked by software messaging. They can get people with skills to come and actually do the jobs of refurbishment. So this is why we partner really quite closely, and why I'm always in Dave's ear about what needs to be done further to get more and more support for the right to repair in UK.
Thank you, Katy. And last but not least, Sarah.
Thank you, and a proud Back Market customer as well, I must say. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, Sarah Ottaway. So I work for a company called Suez. So we are one of the largest resources and waste management companies in the UK. We are probably better known for collecting bins and managing infrastructure and looking after household waste recycling centres, or you might know them better as a tip or the dump, but we do that all across the country. What we're not quite as well known for is the amount of reuse and repair that we do. We've been involved in reuse and repair for about 13, 14 years. We now have 36, and it's growing so quickly I lose count, shops that are based at household waste recycling centres all across the country. We also have the multi-award-winning Renew Hub that's up in Greater Manchester that we have delivered on behalf of the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. So that's a reuse, repair, upcycling, multifunctional, wonderful space that's all about social value, repair, reuse, and all the great things that come with that. Alongside all those activities, we also advocate really strongly for both the circular economy, which is something we've talked about for a long time, even before Ellen MacArthur and the team made it cool. And we have been talking, obviously, more and more about reuse and repair as part of that, and we've worked alongside Restart in a number of ways, and are constantly campaigning and bugging various MPs and all their political advisors to be advocating more strongly for both right to repair and the broader ecosystem that we need to go with that. So yes, that's probably us in a nutshell.
Thank you very much. Okay, so, I mean, right to repair, everyone's mentioned in the UK. I imagine everyone is sort of looking at the EU and thinking, okay, I mean, that's the direction of travel we'd all like to go. Can I ask any of the panel members whether you think there's a reason why the government wouldn't just sign into law in the UK all of the gains? You know, they've done all the due diligence, they've done all the lobbying for it. They've got it over the line, not completely but far ahead of the UK, as far as I can see. Why wouldn't we just sign it into law now? Like, done all the hard work. They've obviously kind of managed to get the balance right so far. Andrew, why wouldn't the task force just go, okay, that's what we want?
There's a lot of really good stuff in the EU policy direction, and a lot of it I think we're looking at very closely. And I think that the environment has changed a bit, so there's an opportunity to talk about it a bit more than you would have been able to a year ago. I think there's a strong business agenda, economic agenda here that people are waking up to much more as well, that you need markets of a certain size, and you need flow of materials across boundaries and borders in order to make it work. And that understanding has been building for a number of years. I mean, we were talking about it 10 years ago in the remanufacturing space with movement of cores across markets and the waste regulations that prevent that from happening. So I think the sophistication of the debate and the understanding has grown a lot. I think the context of the vision and the strategy helps because you've got a lot of support for it. I think you've got certain issues that in certain sectors, I was super impressed with the fact that you were able to get 70 plus ministers together into Parliament House to talk about right to repair. So there is a lot of ministerial interest. There's a lot of public interest in various sectors as well. There's some fairly significant circular economy challenges that we're just starting to really understand. If you look at things like critical raw materials and batteries, they're really difficult problems to think through as we bring millions and millions of cells into the country, battery cells, lithium-ion cells. We don't really know what to do with them. We know that putting infrastructure in place takes many years or several years and many millions of pounds to do, and we don't know whether the technology is going to be viable for those solutions. So there's a lot of tricky things that UK is struggling with, that Europe is struggling with as well. And I think there is an increasing recognition that forming relationships and trying to find rational solutions makes sense. So I think it's the context is allowing those conversations now. We've certainly taken it on board in the work that we're doing and are going to be pushing for those types of things. But there will be, other geopolitical things that play across this that, can't be ignored. And we hope that we're able to at least put the direction out there and have a solid analytic and consultative process that says these are the things that we should be doing.
Thank you. David, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think just building on that and from an electricals perspective on the task force, those of you who might not know what's been going on over the last 9 months, essentially a number of us were invited to join the task force to help co-write the strategy and the sector route maps with the government. And that in itself is a really new and novel approach and quite brave, I think, from government. But what it has allowed us to do is engage with a huge number of stakeholders over the last 9 months. So a number of you here have been involved in some of the roundtables, ministerial roundtables and engagement events that we've hosted as the electricals and electronic equipment sector route map over the last 6 months. And that's allowed us to look at some of the solutions from a pragmatic and practical and deliverable perspective rather than from a slightly less rational perspective. And that means that we've been building quite a good evidence base as to what is achievable and what isn't. But I think it's also, as a task force, because it is cross-sectoral, you can then start to see the cross-cut between various different sectors. So right to repair, predominantly we're talking repair cafes and for householders today, but right to repair goes across industry, it goes across business. You then start looking at different sectors and you go, one of the best and most well-known repair cultures is in the automotive space. This isn't a single topic agenda, and I think one of the good things that's coming out of all of the work that's being done here and then linking to all of the other good work is we have to see this as a systems change, and that's one of the huge things. We have to identify that this is going to be behavioural change, not just a bit of policy change. And that's one of the challenges around policy. Policy can set something in action, but we have to actually ensure that we bring behaviour with it.
Thank you. By the way, everyone, keep your questions boiling now as you hear these responses, and then I'll come to you in a bit when we've sort of had a bit more panel discussion. But I just want to remind everyone we're not that you all will have your say and you'll be able to answer questions. But Katy, okay, so those were quite sort of politically kind of well-phrased replies, I feel. And I'm sure, Fiona, you have something to say perhaps a bit more direct about whether we should just pass all the EU laws into UK laws. But Katy, can I just come to you first? Like, is it a zero-sum game? Okay, if you just take the battery law, okay, so everything in the UK will probably have replaceable batteries when the EU passes that law, because that we're a single market in that sense still for those big companies, right? So are you going to lose business because of that battery law? Like, do you fear the fact that people are going to maybe not have to use you as much, or is it an opportunity from an economic point of view?
No, I think it's an opportunity for us, right? Because what that's doing is making a product more repairable, so it's future-proofing our business model for future years. It'll also mean that things are cheaper to refurbish, so the price point versus new should also be better as well. And when you're talking about driving change, and you're asking about why we wouldn't just implement maybe not just the European laws, but right to repair in whichever form it takes. I think the big answer is because at the moment, a lot of the initiatives are difficult to fund. So you've got more of a political answer here, but the direct one for me is why are we not doing more right now? There's a bill to pay, and a lot of this stuff, if we want to drive change, the biggest thing that we see in our business that makes our sales figures fly, and such a fortunate position that when our sales figures fly, it's not selling more things people don't need. Every extra phone sold refurbished has an impact on the environment, so it's a great position to be in. But when our sales figures fly, one of the biggest indicators or drivers is simply price versus new. So we're constantly trying to watch and facilitate and grow a gap of price versus new. So every change that gets made to eco-design or software blocks or anything really that the right to repair can drive impacts that price versus new and drives that positive change in behaviour. That might mean repair vouchers. That might mean VAT reductions. That might mean VAT scrapping that we recently called for in The Guardian. That has a cost, and that has to be met somehow, and pragmatically, that is a blocker. Hopefully, there's some great answers coming out in some documents in October. But that's an answer to both of those questions.
Thank you. Sarah, you go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to build on Katy's point as well, is that also what we were talking about earlier in the day, and especially in the data session, Hugo was showing us some great examples of how the current EU right to repair legislation only goes so far, as is the right to repair legislation that we've got in the UK. It's very limited, covers a small amount of products, covers a small amount of time. Actually, this is an opportunity for us in the UK to actually get ahead of the game. Could you imagine if we had legislation as advanced of everybody else? This is our opportunity to it. And we've got 2 people in the room that are part of making that happen.
No pressure, lads.
We can use our collective voice through them to hopefully influence that change. So we might not be able to click our fingers and get it today, but it's an opportunity to go that much further.
I'm just loving that David hasn't got a microphone right now. He's like so itching to talk, and I'm just not giving it to him.
And Fiona's got it. So yeah, get that over to you, Fiona. Like, why not just bring the EU stuff straight over to the UK?
Why not? Exactly. I mean, I think what was interesting about the panel this morning is about how you can almost have this arms race between countries of each country that takes a step further sort of has a knock-on effect on the rest of the world. So what I'd really love to be seeing is the UK going beyond, like as we've seen with France, for example. I think that's what we should be asking for, and that's what would be the dream. But with that, like taking that into account, I mean, why not just take on the EU laws? And we know that manufacturers want that. It's a nightmare for them to have different laws in different countries. But unfortunately, we left the EU. So, like, if we wanted, I mean, even, there's processes. So we'd have to do a consultation just to copy EU laws. So even if the decision was made or the recommendation was made to just take on all of the positive EU laws, then there will be a time lag. But it just feels like a no-brainer. But we should still be aiming to kind of go beyond that, if not in the specific right to repair laws, in the other areas of what we're asking for.
Okay. And David, you wanted to come back on that.
I was going to say, I think I wasn't giving a political answer, which is quite unusual for me. But I think a lot of what we try to incorporate into the sector route map is building on everything that's being said. I think one of the challenges and an insight into how government makes decisions is, I think the point you made, Katy, about it costs something like VAT, which I think everybody is very, very interested in exploring how we can actually do something with VAT. It might be on electricals, but it's also on built environment. We've got a huge retrofit challenge around built environment, and there's currently a discrepancy between new build and retrofit. Now, at a government level, there's a question, okay, which one's going to get the biggest bang for the buck? And I'm not suggesting that is the sort of thing, but these are the sorts of questions that do we need to take VAT off on retrofit of existing buildings and electricals, right, how are we going to pay for that? And that's where the evidence base that we've been gathering through the engagement has proved to be really helpful. Whether or not it's enough to get everything through, but I think the other thing is that the route map will be coming out for consultation. So there will be a chance for everybody here to contribute to the evidence base, to be able to ensure that government is seeing that this is what people want, whether it's large companies like Back Market and Suez to individual repair cafes. That's the chance to be able to collectively come back and say to government, this is what we want and this is the evidence that enables us to say, this is what we want. That's going to be the critical thing with the consultation. We need to demonstrate why it's going to be good for the planet, but why it's also going to be good for the economy and why it's going to be good for the growth of the economy, because that is one of the things that government needs to demonstrate.
Okay, so we're into the growth thing. I think there's probably quite a lot of interest in this room about why that's an obsession. And of course, you know, maybe we can unpick that, can we? Because growth of the economy feels to me like, you know, that's like saying the growth of a meal. Like, like there are lots of different aspects to a meal. There are a lot of different aspects to the economy. We need bits of the economy to shrink because they're the really unsustainable bits. And we all know that in this room. And we need other bits, the sustainable bits, to grow. So it's not growth as I see it, or maybe I'm wrong. Like, the argument is not that it's going to grow the economy per se, right? It's going to grow the sustainable bits of the economy, and the unsustainable bits will shrink. And that should be a win-win situation for the UK and for any country. But given the resistance of the EU at the moment and the UK and many other countries to these right to repair laws being more broad, it feels like that argument hasn't been made. That argument isn't really being accepted, that it will grow the economy, the sustainable bit of the economy, faster than it shrinks the other bit. And is that what it comes down to, Andrew?
Well, I think this is, it's a terribly difficult problem, actually. And it's something that we wrestled at Ellen MacArthur Foundation for 10 years. We did an enormous amount of econometric modelling and trying to it's easy to demonstrate the benefits in narrow dimensional ways. It's very, very difficult to look at the system impact and to come up with a net view of you know, who wins, who loses, and where do we come out. And there's a national view, and there's the UK in its global supply chain context as well. So we were never able to, I published 37 major reports in my career, and we were never able to actually do a satisfactory job of measuring the system impact as it related to social and jobs and those kinds of things. And we certainly tried to get, you know, the world's leading economists to help us to do that. So it's very, very difficult. But I think the point about growth is exactly as you said. You know, we need to be talking about a kind of growth that is better, and how we're diluting out some of the linear economic growth impacts that you know, we all know about and are trying to move away from. I think, you know, trying to promote the circular economy, the things that we know that need to happen, to get them to grow and to work through the system impacts as they become clearer is sort of the only way you can do it. Where we are on this particular effort with the government, I think there is a modelling exercise we've just commissioned to understand what the impact could be in the UK, and I suspect, and Paul Eakins, the economist who's my deputy chair on the task force, also believes that we'll probably come out marginally, growing the economy marginally through applying what we're proposing, but the impact will be significant in terms of benefits, and I think that's probably the best we can do at this point. And I would just, coming back to the question about, obviously it would be easier just to flick the switch and to do what they're doing in Europe. This is the first time I've ever worked in the government role like this, and it's been really enlightening to me to see how complex it is and how slow it is. But I would say that, and I was in Europe a couple of weeks ago with the Director General and the Commission, and I would say that the momentum and the direction and the recommendations or the policies that have been put in place seem quite narrow and have limitations, but they're going to be profound if they're successful in pulling that off. And we're really on this journey that is going to, if it plays out and we get product passports in place and we get a rethinking of markets across Europe and aggregation of materials, and it's going to be profound. And these are just few sectors if you apply broadly across the economy. So I would say it's very frustrating for me and for many of us that we can't move, further faster, as certain politicians say a lot. It is really, because we can see what needs to be done. But I would say that I think we often overestimate the impact in the short term and underestimate in the long term. And I think we're on this journey. And hopefully we can get enough in play and we can demonstrate enough impact that there's a marginal positive growth, that we can hold the ground on this and make the case so it is persistent. We need an enduring narrative in government that's across government to say this is an economic rationale that not only makes sense, it's inevitable, we have to get on with it, and it plays out.
Katy, you want to say?
I do just want to add to that, because if we can achieve even a marginal growth impact, plus all the social, environmental benefits. I mean, you do a lot of work in social inclusion. This is a huge benefit of this. Every refurbished smartphone is 89% less water, 89% e-waste, 93% less carbon to produce it. Yeah. So, I mean, wow, to me, if we can achieve those things with a slight...
I think the other important part is the supply chain resilience story and the, in the geopolitical context, that's becoming an increasingly powerful card to play, and this plays to that story, and it is local. A lot of the circular economy, keeping materials in use longer, is a local agenda. Sarah and then David.
Yeah, just picking up your point on the local agenda as well, particularly listening to the leader of Hackney Council who was here this morning, and also with my other hat on, because I'm also a district councillor over in Stroud. And, we're talking about circular economy in terms of our council plan, so it's an embedded part of our council plan to deliver a circular economy strategy. So as you're saying, there's that local delivery agenda, which will also play a part in this, but that will also be where you'll really see the benefits align, because that's where you get the community cohesion, the health and well-being benefits and all those other layers of social value, which is really exciting, but also really difficult, I can imagine, to have that conversation at a national level, because trying to realise all those benefits is going to be phenomenally hard. As someone who works in the social value space, trying to put a value on that is huge, but we'll see that as it comes to fruition, but proving it in the first case is difficult, so yeah.
Probably just giving people some hope as well. I think one of the things that I found as we've been working through the task force, my background is public sector, so I've always been involved in local governments, set up local government strategies for circular economy, for sustainability. When I went into the private sector 12 years ago, we got refurbished tech onto the government buying scheme in 2013. That was a huge milestone. government has got in its procurement refurbished tech. It's got refurbished products. It will go out and buy refurbished furniture. It will go out and buy refurbished tech. We're already starting to see that is a momentum within governments and within local government as well, which is really positive. But it's how do we then, that's not celebrated. That's very, very rarely known. But we should be celebrating that, because that is the power of government showing how we can actually change and influence. And the growth then becomes growth in repairers and jobs for repairers. I was going to ask the audience question here, actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
How many of you are volunteers? Hands up. When it comes to growth, I'm going to say this and don't take it the wrong way. When it comes to growth, in a way, you are slightly irrelevant to the growth thing because it's not countable. Yeah. And that's where social value benefit comes in. As social value, you're brilliant. You're adding huge amounts of value to the economy. But the government is very, very fixated on economic value. And that's where the disparity is quite challenging. So part of the growth aspect is how can we actually demonstrate that the volunteering roles, which are really, really important and absolutely necessary, can then also lead to a growth in skills, a growth in new jobs, and a growth in new ways of doing things.
I'm going to just, Fiona, you want to say something?
I was going to say, or new community projects.
Yeah.
Like one of the visions that I have is that the money that manufacturers have to put into the system, to pay for the recycling at the moment of their products, should be going towards some of what you're all doing. And that's the whole point of these policies, that we're broadening it so that it's not all about recycling, but maybe we can measure all the time that you're putting in and all of the things that you're saving from going to recycling or landfill, and then that can be incorporated and funded. And that's maybe a way of moving the money around so that the good stuff that has massive social value is actually kind of resourced.
We've strayed a little bit from the right to repair focus, I'm sorry to say, and I wanted to give the audience a chance to ask some questions. There's one here. Am I taking the mic? I think I am. Okay, go.
Hello, I happen to have an appointment with my constituent's MP in a few weeks' time. He has a very poor voting record on green issues. Given his short span of attention and his opposition, what should I say to him about right to repair?
And we'll just take a few questions. Hold that answer. We'll take a few questions at a time, and then that gives different panel members opportunities. So there's one there, one there, one there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi,
good afternoon. Chris Shaw from a repair cafe. Question for David, really, and I apologise for any assumptions or ignorance. I don't know your business at all well, but I don't understand, given that most of the world's digital structure is built on the Linux kernel, why you seem to be shying away from the idea of building further on that and using open source software on your refurbished products. I just don't understand.
Okay. Thank you. We'll come back to answers in a minute. There's a question there, and then I think one there, yeah.
We've heard this afternoon about how useful it would be to refurbish smartphones, for example. Fairphone make a refurbishable smartphone. Hands up, everyone who's got one. Oh, two. A Fairphone. Okay, so it's a lot of talk and not much do, chaps, is it?
Thank you for that. Well, it's an observation, I think. There's a question just there.
The speaker from, is it Back Market, mentioned software being a block a number of occasions. And the right to repair runs across different bodies of law, and an important one in terms of access and ability to use third-party software is intellectual property law, copyright law, and our copyright laws just do not support access to to software, or even if you have access to the object code, you're not allowed to reverse engineer it unless it's for interoperability purposes, which isn't what we're talking about here. So I'm just interested in the extent that, you know, the main body of law that regulates access and reuse of software is part of, maybe it's the campaign from Restart, or part of the government discussions around making right to repair a reality.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll just take those questions and then see how much time we've got. So we've got essentially the observation that there are reusables in terms of phones, but that it's a minority uptake. But I'm not sure that's a right to repair question, but maybe it is. There's the MP. What question should our questioner ask the MP about right to repair? There's open source software, and then there's the copyright issue. Well, so right to repair as kind of relevant to software updates and security updates. David, do you want to start with whichever one you want to answer first?
I'll take the Linux one, which I completely agree with you. Linux is a very, very viable and useful tool. However, the 64 charities that we work with that are supporting people that are digitally excluded, they want their excluded people to be able to learn Word, to use Outlook, to use all of the tools that will help them get jobs, help them access the housing register, access the local authority government portal. We've tried Linux. We built 250 devices. Took us a year to get rid of them. We built 250 Windows 11 devices. Took us a week to get rid of them. So I'm not disagreeing with Linux as a solution, but we're looking at it in the context of getting people that are currently excluded from society, that have got no jobs, that have got no homes, and we're trying to integrate them into society by giving them the tools that will get them into society as quickly and as seamlessly, but also upskilling them as well. So Linux has a place, and it has a place with some digital inclusion, but where we're talking in Brighton and Hove, where we're based, we've got 50,000 people that are digitally excluded. The definition of digital exclusion in itself is very different depending on who you talk to. So absolutely, we cannot have binary answers to this as a solution. There is a mix of different solutions. We're focusing on getting people that are severely digitally excluded back into society, and that's why we're focusing on Windows 10 and 11 from next month.
Thank you. What should you ask the MP? Anyone want to say? Yeah. Fiona? Yeah.
Has your MP signed the declaration? The repair and reuse declaration? Oh, that's your number one ask. So like I said, we've got 74 MPs signed up, so it's not outside the realms of possibility that we'll get to 100 MPs soon, and possibly while the Circular Economy Taskforce the strategy is open for consultation. That's really important, not because it's going to kind of change the nitty-gritty policy that's involved, but it will show the government that it's got parliamentary support, and it reduces the chance of things being watered down. It shows that when laws come to pass, that they're going to get the votes they need. So if anyone hasn't got their MP to sign the declaration, please do that. Help us get to 100 in the next few months. If they have signed, there's all sorts of things they can do within Parliament just to kind of show that there is that support. So there's things like they can ask questions, they can sponsor or support a debate, anything to kind of just keep repair and reuse on the agenda so that it doesn't kind of fall down in the process is the really important thing. And we've got briefings. If anybody wants them, we can send them out with more detail.
That's a good answer, thank you. Sarah?
Yeah, I was just going to add on to it as well. Obviously, you know, reuse and repair declaration, that's your number one priority. But to convince them of it as well is looking at what's important to them. So if they're talking about young people in their community, for example, you know, green skills and green opportunities, and they don't even have to be called that now. I think the government rhetoric around it is actually looking more at like future skills. So all those repair and upcycling and remanufacturing skills that we're going to need as this economy grows, it's a great opportunity for them. The local economy that will already be benefiting from the mobile phone repair repairers on the high street and the IT repairers that are probably there as well, and the repair cafes that hopefully are in and around the constituency that will be bringing people together and having all those wonderful community benefits. So scroll their social media, figure out what they're talking about, try and see where you can hook some of those things into that conversation would be my recommendation too.
And actually ask them what they do with their old devices.
We didn't talk, no one's really answered about the software issue, software support. So 5 years software support for, I think that's the EU right to repair that's coming into play for mobile phones and for other things. Is that right?
I think some parts of it are 7 years, no, as well?
7 years, sorry.
So, much like we spoke about earlier, pushing for a longer period.
Yeah.
If not, can we please match what's in the EU?
Yeah.
That would be a good start across the board, all pieces. It's a super interesting, lots of nuance, lots of challenges on it. I understand that, but to your point, what's happening with Windows, the Windows transition at the moment. I mean, that's something like 400 million devices that are being rendered useless almost overnight.
We can't find the reference for that, but it's a big number. But it is very timely that is happening right now in this sort of context, because it certainly caught people's attention.
Yeah.
And ask your MP whether they've got a Windows 10 device, actually. That would be a good thing. That's a good way in.
Yeah. Google Nest, also a similar situation with the previous software update, so that's a question. But I'm also even talking about things that are, with repair of an iPhone until fairly recently, have created barriers to being able to repair it. So back market, like I said, I'm here trying to represent consumer interest in this and what the consumer is likely to buy, to your point. Thank you. It's a good one. It's a perfect point. And something we found in our consumer research is one of the barriers for people being able to buy a refurbished device and feeling confident on it is they were worried about the performance of the battery. So we opened, much like Vodafone had previously done with their Everlasting Refresh program, the ability to buy a refurbished smartphone with a brand new battery in it, therefore answering that consumer need, therefore adding more trust into the system. Problematic, Apple had messages that when you replace the battery, a big scary message would come up saying, hey, this is not a real battery, this is very dangerous, very scary. And of course, this consumer that we've just won over, first time use of refurbished, great future for it, has then suddenly got a big fright and is very nervous about it. These are also really small software barriers to repair that I'm talking about. I mean, that is crazy in comparison to that phone's future lifespan, etc., just for things. So I'm not talking often software maintenance, but also software blocks within the repair process.
I'm going to just see if there's any more questions. I think there's one down here and one here, because we have to come to a close. But we'll take these two questions and then have to wrap up.
Cory Doctorow's been promoting an idea that we should revoke the Millennium Copyright Act. Donald Trump, it was sort of introduced into Europe as a quote pro trade agreement. Donald Trump's ripped that up. We should rip up the Millennium Copyright Act and allow us to break software locks. It would be a small change, but it would mean if we were the first to do it, then there would be enormous benefit to the UK to provide tools to refurbish and fix things that are currently locked with these software locks. And the only reason we can't produce them is that it's a legal requirement that you cannot break that software lock.
Yeah.
Sure, this is a no-brainer. We should absolutely do it. Okay. And if we were the first to do it, we would be in such a good position.
Thank you. Thank you for that. To add, also, there's a lot of support for that. And Christina.
One final question. This is to feed into the growth question, right? A question or an invitation to look at repair as also a very redistributive strategy, because it's good to create growth, but if it's growth that goes directly into the pockets of some very rich already company, which is not even in the UK or in our continent, but in a third country, what good is it gonna do us, really. And if we create growth, maybe a little bit less, but which is actually staying local and redistributive, because repair is labor intensive, and creating jobs, isn't that a better plan?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's we've got just 1 minute to wrap up, and I wanted to sort of just let our panelists say one final thing, and maybe refer to some of there were kind of comments about the copyright law and whether there's an opportunity there for the Circular Economy Taskforce, Andrew, and whether we did talk about this different types of growth, and but I will I think I'll start with Sarah and move this way. Yeah.
Oh gosh, I've got the least amount of time to think about it as well. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, sorry.
So just on the 2 points that were made, I'm not an expert on copyright law, but I know that was something that the gentleman from Canada was talking about. There's already progress that's been made, so I think there's absolutely things that we can learn from there in terms of redistribution of that wealth agenda. It's all the benefits that we'll see, as we talked about before, it's all about local action, local benefits, and I think that will automatically come as part of this, but it has to become part of an economic system. We have to work within the economic system that we have. It's not ideal, and we can sit and talk about what the alternative should be all day, but you can see huge benefits for the UK through all these other matters that we talked about, from critical raw materials through to jobs and local economies. There are huge benefits, and from a Suez perspective, we're really excited to be a part of that agenda and helping to move it forward.
Thank you. Katy, last word.
My last word is get your MP to sign the declaration. We held an event in the House of Commons in May this year, something like that, and most of the MPs that came and signed the declaration were the result of the local repair cafes and community initiatives hustling their MP to turn up at the event, take a photo, make a signature. Most of the signatures came from that path of action, so call to action, find out if your MP has, and hustle.
Nice, okay.
What's
David.
a hashtag?
Ditto.
I was going to say, what a hashtag that was at the end.
I know. I think everybody is already doing this stuff here, and it is about taking this message out to as many people as possible. And Fiona, I might question you with this one, actually. Can we also get local government signing the declaration? Let's get the council leaders on board. There are 73% of councils signed the climate declaration. So if we could get that same 73% of local authorities to sign up to this as well, we've then got both local and central government support.
Thank you.
Can I just very quickly come in, because I know we're short of time. First thing I did as a district councillor when I got elected was took the Reuse and Repair Declaration through the Environment Committee, and Stroud are now signed up as an example that it is possible.
Nice. So,
Well done,
yes.
Sarah. For me, the declaration's been covered, thank you. But just to say that we, when the circular economy strategy comes out, we will be issuing a response and also some template answers. Like, government consultations can be really intense, and a lot of people don't have the time to even read through it and understand it, let alone come up with answers. So we'll be doing template answers. So if you're not kind of signed up to our newsletter, sign up to it, and we'll just kind of like provide you with some information to help you respond if you want to.
Thank you.
And I just reinforce that message. I think the next 6 months are really important, and there is an opportunity to really make noise about this topic in the context of the circular economy strategy coming out. So I would really encourage you to activate as much as you can, and to particularly go after some of the big international issues that you've talked about, because we need to, we need to get these issues really on the agenda, and you've got to keep pushing. We're on the inside. I've always been working on the inside with the companies. I'm not an activist. I'm on the inside trying to work the game there. But it's so important that there's a lot of noise out there and pushing really hard, so I'd really call for it.
Thank you very much. That was a good set of suggestions. I hope you agree. And let's hope that the UK Right to Repair not just matches the EU, but exceeds it, I think. That's the kind of sentiment from the panel, and sooner the better. So that's the end of our panel. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you thought it was useful, thought-provoking. I'd like to thank all our panelists who did a brilliant job. I'm sure you agree, and just give them a thank you. Round of applause.